Somewhere in the quiet woods of 1920s Germany, just outside the village of Grobern, stood a lonely farmstead known as Hinterkaifeck. It was remote, isolated, miles away from the nearest neighbor. And in the spring of 1922, it became the stage for one of the most gruesome and baffling mass murders in German history. 6 lives taken in the dead of night. A killer who may have lived in the house before and after the murders. And to this day, no one knows who did it. This is the story of the Hinterkaifeck Murders. And once you hear it, you may never feel safe living alone again. Andreas Gruber was 63. A stern, hard man with a difficult reputation. He lived at Hinterkaifeck with his wife Casilia, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's 2 children, 7-year-old Casilia and 2-year-old Joseph, and the family's new maid, Maria Baumgartner. By all accounts, Andreas was not well liked. Rumors swirled about abuse, especially toward Victoria. The town whispered that Joseph wasn't fathered by Victoria's late husband, but by Andreas himself. Whether true or not, the family kept to themselves. The farm was self-sustaining, remote. And in March 1922, things started to get strange. Just days before the murders, Andreas told neighbors something odd. He'd discovered footsteps in the snow leading toward the house, but none leading back out. He also said keys had gone missing. Doors had creaked open in the night. The family heard footsteps in the attic. They brushed it off. Maybe a drifter. Maybe paranoia. But it wasn't just the Grubers who noticed. A previous maid had quit months earlier, saying the house was haunted. She was terrified of noises in the attic. And then, March 31, 1922, everything went silent. When neighbors noticed no one had been seen at Hinterkaifeck for days, they grew worried. The family hadn't been to church. The mail was piling up. No deliveries had been picked up. Finally, on April 4th, several neighbors arrived at the farm. They found the livestock hungry but alive. The dog barked but didn't attack. And then they went to the barn. Inside, they found 4 bodies: Andreas, Casilia Sr., Victoria, and young Casilia, stacked like cordwood and covered with hay. Each had been savagely attacked with a mattock, a farm tool like a pickaxe. Inside the house, Maria the maid and young Joseph were found dead in their beds. Also murdered with the same tool. 6 people. Brutally slain. But that wasn't even the strangest part. The killer, or killers, didn't flee in a panic. In fact, they may have stayed in the house for days afterward. Neighbors said they saw smoke from the chimney after the murders. The cows had been fed. The dog was fed and tied up. Someone had even eaten meals in the kitchen. Whoever did this lived there. After the killings. And yet, there was no clear motive. Nothing was stolen. Money was found in the house. Jewelry left untouched. The Grubers were not popular, but they were not wealthy enough to target. If this was revenge, who would be so patient, so calculated, so cold? Police were baffled. They had no solid suspects. No witnesses. No evidence beyond a few faint footprints and the murder weapon, Andreas' own mattock, found months later hidden in the attic. But theories began to form. One was that Victoria's relationship with her father and the questionable paternity of Joseph had triggered someone in the village. Maybe a scorned lover. Maybe Victoria's late husband hadn't died in the war as presumed. Some even speculated Andreas killed the others before taking his own life, though this didn't match the evidence. Dozens of suspects were interviewed, but none was arrested. Even in 2007, modern investigators tried to reopen the case using advanced forensics. They narrowed it down to one likely suspect, but chose not to reveal the name, citing respect for living relatives. The mystery remains. Over time, the Hinterkaifeck murders became legend. Some believe the killer was a vagrant hiding in the attic, watching the family for days, planning his moment. Others say it was a deeply personal crime, someone the family knew, someone who knew their routines. Then there are darker theories, that the house was cursed, that something supernatural was involved. After all, footsteps with no origin, an unseen presence, a family isolated and hated by their village. Even today, the name Hinterkaifeck sends chills down the spines of Germans who know the tale. It's been over 100 years. The farm has long since been demolished. A memorial stands where the barn once did. But the questions linger. Who murdered the Gruber family? Why did they stay afterward? What kind of person can live under the same roof as their victims, eat their food, and sleep soundly just feet away from their corpses? The case remains unsolved, and the identity of the killer and the motive behind the murders have never been determined, making it one of the most puzzling, unsolved crimes in German history. The echoes of Hinterkaifeck still ripple through the true crime world today. And sometimes, it's the crimes that leave the most questions, that never let us go. If you found this story chilling, subscribe to Criminal Echoes for more true crime mysteries that still haunt us today. Hit that bell so you don't miss the next case. And remember, some shadows never fade.